So the installation tab and the installation page came into BF Dynamics a couple of months ago. This is all a part of the process to make the installation easier for everybody. The steps that you're seeing here, before we had this page, you had to do it manually. And we'll just go through everything that we did so far, including those steps, okay, that were automated. So you'll see what is actually happening when you click run. Okay. So if we switch to deploy tab, we'll still leave this open just so we have it here. And we'll just check what's going on. I already talked about the framework module yesterday. So a couple of dimensions there, really important one, date and global dimensions and so on, which we need in order to implement the project. And this gets deployed first. Now, I already talked about the deployed word in BF Dynamics. Deploy, and you can also see here the deploy tab. You will see deploy all, and you'll have the same theme across the application. Deploy means that we will send some scripts, store procedures, view, anything at all to the SQL Server. As I have told you yesterday, we only utilize the SQL Server functionalities, and the BF Dynamics application is but it's a user interface to actually deploy the scripts there. So that's the framework module. Deploy. Remember deploy. And important thing to remember is that deploy all, or deploy in general, only deals with structures, like I said. No data involved yet. So no data transfer from Navision. This is only a setup, everything that we need to set up in order to get the data from the Navision or BC database. Okay. So this is deploy. Yeah, if I focus on deploy a little bit, like I said, this is structure. We can deploy all, but we can also deploy in partial. So stage, data warehouse, and analysis database. So Mladen briefly talked about this yesterday, but we'll go through it again today, just to be sure that you got it right. Okay, so BF Dynamics, the whole data warehouse process is built of three parts. Like I said, stage, data warehouse, and analysis database. Now, first is the stage. If I go to Management Studio and open the database we created yesterday, which is BF Dynamics BC, and go to tables. So let's talk a little bit about the structure of the data warehouse. You will see lots of tables here, but mainly there are, 3 or 4 types of tables. The first one are dimensions that you'll see. The second ones are facts. We'll go into that a little bit later. Then we have some help tables. So this is mainly coming from framework modules. You can also see the global dimensions that are here. And these are, like I said, it's coming from the framework module, and these get deployed first. Then we have some setup tables, and then we arrive to the stage tables. Now, those of you that were dealing with BC or Navision before, you will find this table names familiar. And it's a good reason behind this, because the stage table is actually a replica of Navision table or BC table. I will just take customer for example. So there's also a customer in Navision. In Navision, we can check that as well. So we'll go to our database. I already have it open. I will filter it to only show customer. Okay, let's wait for the filter to be applied. Maybe I didn't do it right. Filter settings. Okay, customer. There we go. Maybe I did a typo, I don't know. But we can see bunch of customer table is bunch of customer tables here. But the one that we're looking for is a customer table. Okay, if we expand this table, we see a bunch of fields here. There are really there are a lot of fields here, but the important thing to remember here, not all of them is used in the BI project. Not do they don't even make sense to use it in the project, because in Excel, you wouldn't want to analyze your data by phone number or telex number or whatever. So there's a lot of fields here. And in BI Dynamics, we actually, in the vanilla project, we decide which tables are coming through. Okay, and how do we do that? Okay, I'll switch back and forth a little bit, but everything will come together at the end, so don't worry. And if you have any questions, just let me know. You can interrupt me anytime, no problem. Okay, so we have a bunch of tables. Now we'll look at, sorry, a bunch of fields here. I think we used about 20 of them in our project. Okay, so let's see how BI for Dynamics makes those fields come into the project. There are two things. So first will be a more visual representation. So we have a stage tab here. Now you wouldn't necessarily go here with the installation. Everything that I'm saying here is just a visual help for you to know how the things works. But otherwise, in a normal project, you wouldn't go to this part at all. Okay, that comes later on with a lot of customizations and everything, and with functionality that we have on this tab and so on. But we'll get to that a little bit later. So I'm going to Stage tab. Okay, I don't see anything selected here. Hold on for a bit. I will just reopen this instance. Okay, if you have any questions at this point, you can ask me. Okay, nothing. Then we'll just wait for this to load. Okay, while we wait for this to load, we'll look on the other side of things. So I've talked about the table, the structure of the BI Dynamics installation folder. And when we deploy and process the project, you'll see a bunch of tables here. They're basically divided logically. So setup is something for, the setup. We'll take a look at that later on. We have stage, right? This is the same thing that we saw before on the deploy. And then we have data warehouse. And then at the end, we have cubes. So three parts to the project: stage, dimension and facts, and cubes. So let's focus on the stage right now because we're already deep into that. If I open this folder, you will see a bunch of folders here. And within those folders, let's say the customer folder, you will see a tag file. This tag file means tables and columns file. This is automatically generated by BI for Dynamics. Depends on which tables or which fields do you want into the table. We'll get to that a little bit later. How is this generated? But important thing to know is that if you have a standard project, it will be here by default when you finish the installation. Okay, so we have a customer. We'll open that with Notepad++. I trust everybody has one by this point. Okay, so that's basically an XML file. This one is loaded in the meantime. Okay, so I have the tables that are in the project checked, so that's okay. This is basically the list of all Navision table that we have read when we have added the data source. So if you remember, I was saying when you add the data source, it takes some time. This is where we read the structure from Navision database. Okay, and within that database, of course, is a customer table. Now, we see all the fields that I've shown you in the SQL server before, right? These one. In BI Dynamics as well. So this is a exact one-to-one ratio here. all the fields that are there should be here as well. And you can see right away, this is intuitive, right? Only the ones that are checked comes into the BI project. Okay. And you can see a check mark here. This means that a particular field is in that database. Now, you only have check marks here, but for me, because I have two databases, of course, you know, Navision or BC versions can vary between each other. I see some X's as well. So if I look at this one, so mobile phone number, okay, this was not in Navision in BC 16, but they have added it in 17. Okay, so this is a totally new field. And we get that information from here as well. Okay, focusing on the one that are selected, you know, the primary key, of course, this is the customer number and customer name, which is not primary field, but it's really important. And the rest of the fields, the same thing is reflected in the tag file. Okay, so I'll just break it down a little bit for you. You know, this seems a lot, but it's really easy. Basically, the XML tells the application which fields to bring over. So from table 18, that is customer, from which data source, okay, what is the object name, okay, we have a dollar sign and you know, a string here. This is in the newer BC versions. These are called extended tables, but we'll get to that in a moment. So the important thing here is the customer table, and then, you know, we always try to use the friendly name. So instead of using the whole string here in the stage, so in BF Dynamics you'll only see the customer table, okay, this one, and it will also say stage object name customer. Okay, and then if we go down a little bit to the merge column section, okay, we can see we're bringing in the number, what is the original name, what will be the name on the stage. Again, we're fixing some things, no underscore here, just number. And we can also see what the type is, if it's selected or not, and so on. And then it goes, for me, I get this again for another database, but for you, you will just go on and see all the fields that are selected: name, address, and so on, city. Okay, you get the idea here. Okay, we'll not go into this into more detail, so we'll just head back here. Okay, once the application knows which tables and fields to bring in, when you deploy, or should I say here, when you deploy stage, we will create those tables on the stage part of our project. Okay, stage tables. Again, this is not dealing with the actual data itself, but just the fields. And if I go to stage customer, if I open this up, columns, you will see about, I don't know, 20, 25 fields selected here. The ones that are really important, the same one are also checked here. Okay, the one with the check mark. So this is how we know what to bring in or not. Okay, and this is true for every table in Navision. I selected an example, which is easy to understand, but it's the same for transactional tables, for the master tables, and so on. For those of you who don't know, the master tables are usually the ones that that contains, or to start on the other end, transactional tables are the one that have numbers in it. Let's say net sales, okay? So the documents, the numbers. And then the master tables are the ones that you usually make a dimension out of it. And it's the table you need to, if you create something from that table, you will take that element and you will analyze those numbers with this table. So net sales, you will analyze it by customer or by employee or whatever. So they're not actual numbers. It's just a property that you want to use to analyze your data with. Good. So this is the stage part. And I already went a little bit into the next section, which is transactional tables and dimension tables. And like I said, these are also elements in the data warehouse. Now we're moving from stage to data warehouse, so dimension and facts. So dimensions, like I said, comes from master table, and in our data warehouse, they have a schema called dim, so dimension. And then for the fact tables, those are the transactional tables where the numbers come from. The schema here is fact. Okay. Good, like sales, purchase, and so on. Payables, receivables, all those things. Good. Any questions so far? No? Okay, so I'll just continue. So this is, another section. The second section of our data warehouse is, like I said, the data warehouse. This is where dimension and fact tables come in. We talked about stage. Now we're moving to data warehouse. Like I said, dimension and fact tables. Good. And when we have everything inside the data warehouse, so the data is moving, actually not the data because we're still talking about structures here. So we'll talk about this later on. But the final step is deploying analysis database. So that is not on, of course, the database engine, but it's on the analysis part of the SQL Server. So if I open database here, should be able to see, and you should be able to see the ones that that we've created. And if I click on tables here, I'll pretty much get the same exact story with some differences, of course, as we had on data warehouse. The difference here on tabular database or analysis tabular database is that we don't divide tables between transactional tables and dimension tables. They're treated the same. Okay, so we have the same exact table for a company and customer and so on. Okay, that's it. Okay, so within those, like I said, within those table structure, we have a lot of files. So in dimensions, we have some files, and on facts, we have some files, and also on the cubes, we have some files. We just have a model here because we only need one file for the tabular database. And when we press deploy all, everything will get deployed to the SQL Server, which brings me back to the install page. Okay, so so this is the deploy, pretty much how it works. The next one is metadata. So this is really important for you to remember. Each Navision has a table which is called metadata. In that table, contains information about all the structures in Navision, so all the tables, all the fields, but not only just a list of them. It's also the relations between tables. It's also the field length, its types, and a bunch of other information there as well. And we basically use that to know what kind of structures are on the customer's database, because not every Navision database is the same. Some of them has customizations, and some are the same way that Microsoft created them, so out of the box. And this metadata is really important for us to know what's going on the customer database. Okay, so we get that right after the framework module. The next steps, it's called get data warehouse automation scripts. Now, there's also a button here which is called download solution. This will effectively download the scripts according to So we have a package there, right, of all the scripts available. So those are the scripts that we are deploying on the server, remember? So the tag files and also the scripts in Dimension and Facts. So this will download those scripts from our servers, but only for the modules that you have selected in creating the instance. Okay, for us, it was a standard module, we call it. So six standard areas: inventory, payables, purchase, receivable, sales, and general ledger. If you click anything else, those scripts will get downloaded as well. But then we have a problem. So the scripts that we have downloaded, they're actually like I said, vanilla scripts. So they're based on Kronos database, Microsoft Kronos database, which is a demo database. But not every database might be the same. So when we download that, so how do we make those scripts adapt to the customer? Okay. So this is where metadata comes in. As I've said, we know exactly what's going on the customer side with the metadata. And at this point, we'll just check the metadata. So you'll see what we get here. BC, okay, this is a special table here, which is called metadata.nav. If I just select it from here, and for my example, I will use the customer table. Okay, now we have a customer table. Also, I'll do here profile equals 1. You don't need to know about this at the moment. I just wanted to show you what's the kind of information that we get from here. Okay, so table 18 is customer. We have number as a primary key, then we have name and all the other fields that are accessible in Navision. Okay, how many fields are there? 165. We use about, like I said, about 20, 25 of those. But we know it's there. Okay, remember, we know it's there in the customer database. And as I've said, downloading the vanilla scripts and then adapting it to the customer via the metadata is something that we're really proud of. It's the development process that was going on for the last 3-4 years maybe. And it is done in the next steps. Okay, and I'll guide you through them. Now, deploy manual scripts, this is not so important. We still have some manual scripts there that needs to be deployed. That's all you need to remember for now. But then we're dealing with scripts. So load data warehouse automation scripts from folder to memory. So we load it, of course, first we download them to folder 6. We haven't mentioned it, but those scripts are in folder 6. Okay. And then we load it to memory, which means we load it to the application. So this is where I would say, magic happens. If we go to Customize tab, okay, and we see we have the same steps here. We get the metadata, so this is the same step as the second step here. Reload wizard sources, that is the load scripts, that's the number 5. And then it says generate for dimension and for cubes. And let's look at that just for a moment. So I will go into manage dimensions. We'll talk about, the whole managed dimensions and the whole wizard model, how it works in later sessions. I just wanted to show you what we do here. Okay, now we're in the wizard. Don't worry about the layout for now. I just wanted to show you something. So we'll search for that customer. Okay, and we have a generate button here. Okay, if I press generate here, now this seems simple, right? It's just a circle turning, nothing much going on. But what's going on in the background is actually, I'll give you an example. Let's say we checked, okay, customer name. That's an easy example. We know the field type is text, and we know the field length is 100. Okay, 100 characters long. This is true for Kronos database. But what if a customer has its own customers with longer name than 100 characters? They would go to, of course, Navision developers or their Navision partners. They would say, okay, we need to have this field longer than 100. We'll have it 200. Okay. And this will show up in metadata. So when we check that and when we actually generate the script for the customer, we will automatically apply that new property to our vanilla scripts. So effectively adapting all the scripts, not only for the customer, but this is just an example for all the scripts to what the customer has at the moment. Okay, just let me know if you understand that or not.
Could you please repeat? What did you click to refresh it?
I click generate, but we'll go through that on the later stage of the installation. The important thing to remember here is that only the concept that we are adapting the script. Okay, adapting the script according to what's in the metadata table. So this is the installation page. You will probably only use this one with a customer at the beginning. So with the proof of concept where everything, you will use this one. If there will be some customizations, then you will have to do some manual work. But this installation here is only to make things easier for you guys. Okay, so we talked about deploying the instance. So this is deploying all the structures which are on, so which are the scripts and the tag files that we talked about. And then the last step is process. So process in BF Dynamics means that we're dealing with data. All the structures are there, but the process and if we go to the process tab, we again see 3 stages to the processing. One is stage, other one is data warehouse and analysis database. So the same thing as on deploy. And when we process the data, what we're doing when we process stage, we're bringing the data from BC to staging tables. Okay, so that's the actual data that is being transferred to staging tables. If I go here to stage, customer, if I select it, so I already see, and you should also have some information inside. Okay, so that's what we did when we processed the data warehouse. Processed the stage. So these are, of course, raw numbers. This is exactly how they appear in BC. In addition to that, we add a couple of fields at the end to the staging tables. Everything is the same besides those two. So this is company ID and data source ID. Now for you, you will only have company ID 1 and data source ID 1 because you have one data source and one company selected. For me, I have 2 of those, so we have 2 companies in 2 different data sources. If I scroll down, I have number 2 as well. And we join data from multiple data sources into one particular staging table. This is true for every stage table. And by indicating from where it comes from, we can later analyze in our reports. We can know exactly where this information is coming from which company. Okay, so this is a vital piece of information here. We differentiate where does it come from. Good, so that is the stage. When we have the raw data, in the staging part, then we move to process data warehouse. On the data warehouse, to repeat, data warehouse are dimension and fact tables. Okay. we take information. So at this point, interacting with BC database is done. It's finished. We don't need any interaction with BC database anymore because we have the copy of the data in our staging tables. Okay. And then we transfer data from staging tables to dimension and facts. So again, if I look at a dimension customer, okay, I would have it, I would have the data here. Of course, you can see there is a difference between data, a little bit of a difference between here and between the stage where there is raw data on the dimension table where we already did some transformations, okay? Like, you know, the number field is now customer number. So I would say that this is really important because now we actually know when we check the data what this number is. There are a lot of tables in Navision and a lot of them has the number primary key. If we didn't add the customer, we wouldn't know where it comes from. Okay, so we already did do some transformation here on the dimension. So in data warehouse, of course, that's the that's the bread and butter of the whole ETL process that we do. Also, customer name, it's no longer a name, it's customer name, and so on, right? So we know exactly in the reports where this table or where does it come from. So customer table, city, customer territory code, and so on. Again, the same as in staging tables, we have company ID and data source ID, and I would have 1 and 2, you would only have 1. Okay? Good. So we'll not go into apart from renaming the fields like to customer number and customer name. We also do some custom fields as well, which is customer, for instance, where we join number and name together to have it a little bit easier in the reporting. So we have customer number and customer name. So everything is done on the data warehouse. Okay, so when we have everything in data warehouse, we just send everything to analysis database and it will be there. And with the reports, you will actually connect to the analysis database and report on this data. So the report that we did yesterday, this is connection to the analysis database. Okay, so this is the process in general that we go through in the installation page. So yesterday we clicked run and everything was done by the application. Now we actually know what we did in these steps. Okay. So that's good. Good. So basically now this completes the section of installing BI for Dynamics not application, but new instance. Okay, we went a little bit more into details that I wanted to at this point, but it's not a problem. If we recap just quickly what we did yesterday and today, we have created a new instance. Okay, we have added the data sources, we have selected the companies, we have selected the modules. We got those data warehouse automation scripts from our server. Okay, we have gotten the metadata. Okay, so we know what's going on the customer side, on the customer database. Then the next step was to adapt those scripts according to the model that we have in metadata. Then we deployed everything to the SQL server. Okay, so at this point, at the previous step, we only have it saved in files, which doesn't help us much. We deployed everything to the SQL, and then we processed according to the rules that we have set up. And when I say rules, I mean the exact stored procedures that we have deployed on the server and that we have generated them before. Okay, if we just look at one of that example, we have created the table, customer table, with this particular set of rules. Okay, for the customer name, we have nvarchar 100. This is in line from what we saw in the metadata. Okay, customer name. Yeah, and I'm sure, Saurabh, you have a if you look at this particular create table customer, you have nvarchar 50 here, not 100.
Yeah, that's right. I just checked.
Okay, perfect. So this is a really good example that this is it's not you know, going statically from step by step to step, but it's also doing some transformation already for the customer. You can see in Saurabh cases, a case when he has downloaded those scripts, he had customer name 100, but according to his metadata, the database that it's using has these fields at 50, and that's why we adopted the script to include this length. Good. This is again a simple example, but you know, it's really a nice representation of what we're doing here. Okay, so this will conclude the first part of the training. And on the break, Alex here asked me a really good question. If this is kind of an industry standard that we have a kind of run button that does everything automatically, and the answer here will be absolutely no. So this is unique worldwide to our product, and this is why BF Dynamics is at the moment, you know, content-wise and usability-wise, I think it's the #1 product in the world at the moment. So something, you know, something that is done here, nobody else does this as we do.